You may have seen movies about time travel and time machines before, like Primer, Time Lapse, and Coherence, but this movie from the year of 2015, called Project Almanac, must be the single worst movie in that category, and so also one of the worst sci-fi movies ever made. If we compare it to those three movies, guys, it has very bad tension, and it takes way too long for it to get going, but not only is it slow, it is dragged as well. But we will get to that bullet point a little bit later. Because really, if you do not feel a nerve as you do not do in this movie, it is so very hard to stay invested and interested into the sci-fi mystery movie, at least it tries to be that. The movie is first of all very badly made, as we see this film with the flacking camera that you might know from Blair Witch Project. But it is just a feature that makes this movie quite unbearable to get through, because this direction just makes it look like a completely amateur-made movie, and it looks like it could have been made in a garage during the 1950s. That's how bad it looks on screen. The plot itself is very boring when we just end up with a strong focus on the relationship between Jessie and David in part 2 of the movie, when he goes back in time to kiss her at this Lollapalooza festival that he failed to do at first time, because he did not read the singles right as he had that moment when they tugged along those walls sprayed with graffiti. Then he also breaks the protocol by time jumping alone, when all the inventors of this time machine actually agree to never time jump alone. The point is that in movies like, for example, Time Lapse or Hot Tub Time Machine, they actually use the time machine like that for their own selfish material gain. Of course, they try to do that a little bit with these latter attacks, but generally, they just try to fix things that have gone against them in the current time. And of course, they can only go back a few days. But that's a bit of the same as you see in the movie Primer, which is a better version of this one. An example of this is that they try to fix stuff such as the org of the main character, where her mother has to sell her house in order for him to go to MIT. Also, in addition, if we compare this movie with other sci-fi movies such as Coherence, Radius, and the already mentioned Primer, it does look scuffed, but this one is probably the least polished of those, and that's a problem with a lot of lower budget sci-fi movies. They may draw you into exciting concepts such as time machines and a naturally weird slack frequency, but they lack sort of the final touch to make them into sci-fi movies, and actually looks visually decent or great. I mean, come on, as they are working in his garage, and thank strong force sends them back in time. It looks awfully made, and even Back to the Future with his car driven and then generated by lightning looks better than this thin, mediocre shit. A last comment about this movie also needs to be seen, where we see a movie that is very boring and it feels like the typical uninteresting dialogue of teenagers in school, where perhaps some younger guys that actually are still in high school can relate to it, but for others, older guys, it's hard to relate to this highly nerdy talk that they are doing at times, and a lot of the movie is badly explained. Showing just another reason why this mediocre crap of a sci-fi movie does not deserve more than 3 out of 10.